When it comes to higher education, research is typically at the top of the priority list, along with student training and development. And research can sometimes lead in unexpected directions. Burmese pythons have devastated the small mammal population in the Everglades National Park in southern Florida. They're native to Southeast Asia and were brought to the United States as pets. But some owners abandoned the snakes over time, and they established a breeding population in the park. Now, NSIU graduate students' research recently helped remove two of those big pythons. They measured over 12 feet in length each. Benji Jeffords has more.
When Kelly Crandall was younger, she had dreams of becoming a veterinarian, but a study abroad opportunity as an undergrad changed all that.
After I graduated in 2018, I've just done a couple internships and technician jobs on different wildlife projects, and I've really enjoyed the animal movement sphere, and especially with mesopredators like raccoons and possums. I've always kind of had an affinity for those guys.
After coming to SIU, Crandall's research on medium-sized mammals took her to Key Largo, Florida.
My project is really focusing on how raccoons and possums specifically are moving throughout that landscape. How are they utilizing natural areas? Are they going into these urban areas, and are they foraging there? And a lot of our questions are, how do these movements affect the ecosystem?
Some possums and raccoons are fitted with tracking collars and released back where they were caught, so their movement could be monitored.
If you're a raccoon, you're a native animal in the Keys, you have a role in that ecosystem. So you're eating native fruits and spreading seeds and helping plants propagate. Or you're eating eggs from nests and you're having effects on population control. But if there's a nice dumpster or some cat food or bird feeders, it might be easier to just go there and take advantage of those food sources. And so they're being drawn away from their natural areas into these urban spaces.
Crandall uses an antenna and receiver to hear if she's in close range to an animal. But different sounds can mean different situations.
We hear the caller and it's giving out a mortality beacon. So that indicates to us that the caller hasn't moved in at least 4 hours. And so, regardless, you're going to go check out, see what's happening. Sometimes, one of our animals has just expired naturally. Sometimes they've gotten hit by cars. Sometimes it's just a possum taking a really long nap and is totally okay. We detected it on mortality in early September. But the collar was underground, which isn't totally unusual in the Keys. They're ancient coral structures, and so there's all these cavernous tunnels underneath a pretty thin layer of topsoil, and the animals definitely utilize those underground areas.
But then, the collar started moving again and recorded more than 30 mortality events.
So that's when we were really thinking, we think it's in a python. And so one day in early November, he went out to go look, and she was finally on the surface, and he got a good look at her, and he could tell that the beacon was coming from this snake. And so then it was just all hands on deck. All the staff members down in the Keys got together, and they had to excavate this python. They spent a long time kind of digging her out. But they were able to remove her, confirm that the collar was in her system, and it was really great to get that snake out of the system.
The 12-foot, 62-pound python was also full of egg follicles, and 2 weeks later, another raccoon was eaten by a 77-pound python and removed from Key Largo, Florida, preventing dozens of future pythons from destroying the ecosystem.
These females are the real key to fighting this invasive species, because they're the ones laying huge clutches of eggs. They're the ones that are growing really big. They're the ones that are eating a ton of animals. And so removing any snake from the system is always a good thing. But when you're able to get one of these big pythons, it's especially meaningful. And it's a great feeling knowing that my research has resulted in this. And I think there are a lot of opportunities to expand upon the project and hopefully keep it going even after my time here at SIU to keep on getting these big snakes out.
This discovery could give wildlife officials a new tool to help remove pythons by tracking their prey.
I think it's going to just see what different agencies do with this data and how it works into their current management plans. There are a lot of different tools that scientists are currently using down in southern Florida. They're using scout snakes, which means they're putting transmitters in adult pythons, that hopefully will lead researchers to breeding aggregations, and then they can remove those breeding pythons from the environment and keep tracking their scouts. There's a ton of road cruising going on with contractors who are cruising roads at night, hoping to pick up snakes, they pick up a lot of snakes.
Crandall plans to return to Key Largo later this summer and continue her research.
We're in the process of looking to secure more grant funding to buy more collars. I think right now the future plan is to deploy more raccoons and possums, but if the technology allows us and everything comes together, we would love to put transmitters on smaller animals and possibly use that to find snakes.
Crandall says as the climate changes and warmer temperatures head north, the pythons could expand their area as well.
They could be potentially moving northward, colonizing the rest of Florida and going into Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, even as far as North Carolina. And so while it seems right now like a South Florida problem, it's going to be a much bigger problem if we don't get a handle on it. And so I think that just means putting a lot of time, money, and research into figuring out what we can do to remove these snakes from the ecosystem.
For InFocus, I'm Benji Jeffords.